constantly ill. So I get stuck inside my house whenever there's wildfire smoke around. The recent heat dome last year definitely increased my anxiety levels to the extent that that is what drove me to write that open letter for the BC Climate Emergency campaign that everybody has signed on to. I sort of got to the point where I'm like, okay, this is a climate emergency. And if this is a climate emergency, I'm not taking vacation right now. I'm going to spend my 2 weeks of vacation and I'm going to work on this letter. And that's how that got off the ground. Yeah, climate anxiety keeps me awake at night.
Do you notice a difference of operating a not-for-profit before COVID-19 and now during?
Yeah, there's been a number of challenges that we've had to overcome. Typically, we have about 80 volunteers that contribute about 1,300 hours every year or more. And that number has halved with the pandemic, partly because I think it's harder to engage people over Zoom and remotely. And we're also just not out on the ground like we used to be. Like we used to be at the farmers market, or we used to be doing a lot of door knocking and engaging with a lot of volunteers in that way. And we haven't been able to do those things. We have planned several events and just had to cancel them because there'd be a new wave and everything would change. And all of the hard work that our volunteers put into like setting something up is just like, sorry, guys, we're going to hold off on this again. So there's actually a demonstration that we've been planning. It's going to be like 2 years that we've put it off now. So it's been challenging.
So what are the biggest challenges facing My Sea to Sky?
Funding has been challenging. It's with the pandemic as well, like we definitely saw a reduction in the number of donations that were coming from individual donors. Sort of bounced back a little bit in the last year, which is good. But funding is always a challenge. And I will admit it's not my strong suit. I struggle asking for money. So that's something that I'm hoping to get some support on soon, because I think the organization has a critical role to play within Howe Sound. We're able to be very reactive, actually. And it's because we're not a charity that we're able to advocate as effectively as we do. But those are also barriers because we're not a charity, we can't access a lot of the big grants that are available to other organizations. We've been questioning whether or not to become a charity, but my concern is that we will become less effective. We won't be able to advocate as effectively as we have been doing. So it's that delicate balancing act of like, how do we support an organization when people want a charitable receipt so that they can give more?
I know that most not-for-profits and charities across Canada are struggling, mostly due to the pandemic. I wonder if you can unpack this conversation a bit more about the differences between a charity and a not-for-profit.
We are a not-for-profit right now. It's more whether we would become a charity. So a charity is limited in what they can say or their involvement in politics, essentially, and how much they can advocate. And there's very strict guidelines that you have to work within. And where we are an advocacy organization, like our strength is in our advocacy and our ability to mobilize the public to participate in these public engagement processes, but also to advocate on their behalf. So it's that trade-off. The challenge with becoming a charity as well, or even just with grants, you are beholden to the funder and what the funder wants to see happen. And one of the strengths of My Sea to Sky is that we can be reactive, we can be responsive. When something comes up, because we do have monthly donors that contribute to us every month, we're able to say, yep, we can jump on that. We don't have to, apply for funding that we'll maybe get in a year, because there's often very significant time lags. There's also a lot of work that goes into accessing grants, and you can apply for grants and then just also never get them. Yeah, our monthly supporters, we are so incredibly grateful to them because they allow us to be reactive. They allow us to be responsive. They allow us to focus on areas that we would not otherwise be able to to work on, or to rapidly develop a quick response campaign.
Because your focus is Howe Sound, do you get any support from the Islands Trust or from individual islands or those island communities?
In funding, no. But we also haven't asked. We are working with Islands Trust. Like I mentioned that we're developing this report card tool to show where emissions are coming from. And Islands Trust is one of the government entities that has signed up to participate in that.
I would think that because of the work you do, because of where you're situated, that every citizen who lives in the Howe Sound would be enthusiastically supporting you.
Well, I hope so. Our community of supporters are really quite remarkable. But I also want to acknowledge that some people can't afford to give, and that's okay. They can contribute in other ways, or they can participate by signing a survey or a petition or sending letters. Like different people contribute in different ways, and different people have different focuses as well. Like I'm just thinking about Howe Sound and the number of different organizations that contribute to ensuring that our communities are as amazing as they are, and whether that's an organization that's working with vulnerable people, housing or the homeless, to organizations that maintain the trails or access to recreation. Like there's a lot of incredible volunteers in Howe Sound, and I think people contribute in different ways.
So for our friends and families that are listening, what would you like them to take away from this conversation? How can we help?
Get involved. Get involved with My Cedar Sky, like follow what we're doing, sign up to be on the mailing list, take action when we call for it, whether it's signing a petition or sending a letter. It really does have a big impact. When we can mobilize 4,000 people in a few days to send a letter to a local government agency, it has a massive impact on our ability to then advocate for positive change. So get involved in your community. Even if it's not with My Cedar Sky. Like I said, there's so many different ways to contribute to Howe Sound and to Howe Sound communities, and lots of amazing organizations to support.
What haven't we talked about that we should?
I'm trying to think back to your email. You wanted to talk climate action. We talked a little bit about the climate emergency campaign. Did you want to dive into wood fiber LNG and where it's at right now?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great idea because wood fiber LNG is kind of like one of those bad smells that won't go away. And the idea of these big LNG tankers going up and down our coast is frankly frightening.
Owen and I have been scratching our heads because a lot of it seems like smoke and mirrors. The project keeps on saying that it's going to be making a final investment decision, despite the fact that it made a fake final investment decision on behalf of Premier Christy Clark in the lead up to the previous provincial election. So we keep on looking at this project and just saying this doesn't make any sense. It's not financially viable without massive subsidies and handouts from the government. It isn't moving. We don't currently know where wood fiber LNG is going to be putting their workers. They have applied for a flotel, which is short for a floating hotel, that they would have moored at the site to house their workers. And this is because of the housing shortage in Squamish and the housing affordability issues that are happening everywhere. And we flagged that since 2014, and wood fiber LNG just didn't listen to us. So the solution is to create this flotel, but to do that, they had to go through an amendment process, and that process has completely stalled. So we're still hearing this rhetoric from wood fiber LNG that the project is going ahead. We're going to be making a final investment decision in the next few months, but they've been saying that now for years. And so if we look at what My Cedar Sky has achieved, we have successfully stopped the project since 2015. 2015 was when they were meant to start construction, and they still haven't started construction. They still haven't made a real final investment decision. So there's a lot of questions that we have about how real this project is. I wish it would just go away. I am very tired of it. But yeah, it's still there. It's still hanging over our heads. It still feels like a very real threat, even though we're not seeing any action. I keep on asking, what am I missing? Is there something that I'm missing that I should be paying attention to, or something that I don't understand with this project? And that's the reason that it's still there.
So Why is it still there?
I think the reality is one of the reasons that it's still there is because it's not costing them anything. Fiber LNG has a hydro generation on the site, and that brings in, I think the estimate that we've seen from BC Hydro, it's between $1 million to $1.5 million every year. And so all of their basic costs are covered. It's not costing them anything to have staff just sort of like ticking over and slowly checking the boxes and moving things forward. And they have invested a lot in, actually, interestingly, communications people, community relations people, and public relations people. And that is due to us. One of their staff members actually thanked Owen recently because without My Cedar Sky, she said she would not have a job. So I guess that's a way of saying that we've been effective.
Well, you're obviously doing good work.
We're doing our best. We've had to learn so much about how the different provincial and federal environmental assessment processes work. We've had to learn how all the different permitting processes work, how local government works, engaging with the media. Like, these are all skills that, as just a random citizen from the general public, we've sort of had to learn over the last 8 years. And we've managed to, I think, build a lot of support and raise a lot of awareness within Howe Sound. But it's been a journey and a challenge. And in many ways, I'm grateful to the project because the community that has come together through My Cedar Sky and through the work that we've been doing is truly incredible. And it's inspirational because this one project has brought together people from all around Howe Sound, from the different communities. And we came together initially with the vision of like, oh my gosh, we've got to stop this. This is a terrible idea. But we also developed this vision of the future that we wanted to build together. And that's really inspiring. And that is why I still keep on doing this work. It's the people. It's the people that you get to engage with and laugh with and spend time with in all these different communities and the relationships that you create. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be able to do this work.
Didn't you have an art challenge last year?
Last year, we ran our inaugural Howe Sound Art Challenge. We had more than 188 submissions from students from grades K-12. And it's been absolutely inspiring to see this incredible artwork and to recognize the talent of all of these students around Howe Sound. So we're going to be doing that again this year. So there'll be an opportunity for students from K-12 to participate in the next Howe Sound Art Challenge, Fiber LNG.
So if somebody wants to find out more about this, just go to your website.
If you want to learn more about My Cedar Sky and all of the amazing things that we're doing, go to mycedarsky.org and you will find everything you need to know there.
Well, you really are doing some amazing work. I really want to thank you for hanging out. It's been so interesting to find out what's going on at My Cedar Sky and learning about the work you're doing in Howe Sound and the influence you're having in British Columbia and no doubt the world. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Listen, thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Our conversation today has been with Tracey Saxby, who's the Executive Director of My Cedar Sky. If you'd like to find out more about the work they do, you can find them almost everywhere in social media, and specifically mycedarsky.org. That's another edition of the Conversation Lab. This radio program and podcast is produced by CFRO-FM in Vancouver's downtown east side. We're on the territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Our gratitude and thanks to them, as well as to the many not-for-profit organizations, community groups, and change makers around the world that support this program. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider becoming a member of Co-op Radio to support this program and the many others produced by hundreds of volunteers. If you have a story to share or know someone who does, please have them contact us at coopradio.org, theconversationlab.ca, and on many social media and podcasting platforms. This episode was cobbled together with some help from Brian McKinnon, Kimit Sekon, John Massacar, and Julian Anton. Thanks, guys, and thank you for listening. I'm Don Schaefer.